Hello and welcome to my video on drum filters. So in this video we're going to be looking at two different drum filters from two different manufacturers. One of them is the Oase drum filter and Biochambers, and the other one are Profi drum filters. So this is my pond. As you can see, the water quality is absolutely spot on, really, especially considering how much I feed these fish. I feed them a lot. And the fish are pretty happy and doing pretty well. So what filters have we got on this pond? So these are the drum filters. We've seen them before, but in this video I actually want to talk about drum filters themselves. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of actually owning a drum filter? Now, if you think actually buying a drum filter is going to be zero maintenance, you're never actually going to have to do anything, then you're wrong. There is stuff you do have to do to a drum filter, it's just not as regular as any other type of filter. And there are a couple of recommendations and stuff like that that I think might help your experience with the drum filter. So we'll start with these ones. These Profi drum filters are absolutely smashing. They're what I would consider to be a really good filter for somebody who is really sort of into the koi, really doesn't mind being on top of everything. The person that's going to sort of test the water to see what their ammonia level is all the time, this is the drum filter for you. And if you want a drum filter where it's sort of plug it in, forget about it, I don't have to think about it too often, maybe I'll look at it every now and then perhaps the Oase drum filter is more for you, and we'll get into why shortly. But we'll start with these control units. Now these are the older type of control units, and with these control units you had to wire it all up yourself. The newer ones, you plug in the high pressure pump, the drum's motor and other things, you actually plug them in, but you still have to sort of do a little bit of messing about with cables. That is not the case with the Oase drum filter. The Oase drum filter is just plug it in, which I absolutely love. It's so much easier than these, but I do actually like these, but then again wiring and that is something I'm really good at, so it weren't too much of a problem for me, that aspect of it. But again, the newer version's a little bit more simpler than these ones, so I don't want to give them too hard a time for that. Now the next thing is the UV lights in these drum filters. All drum filters should have a UV light in. The Oase drum filter doesn't. I don't know how it's going to get on with that. Time will tell. One can be added later on if it's an issue. Now why is that? Why does it need UV light? Well, this particular drum filter here didn't have one for the first couple of years of its life. This drum filter's always had one. And there's a video somewhere on the internet where I actually installed this UV light, and you can see that the drum filter, where it's touching the UV light, or the UV light's really close to the drum, it's like brand new. And then just there, it's still not 100% managed to get that brown stuff off. But it's not causing much of an issue at the moment, so I've just left it and messed about with it. You can get chemicals to wash that off, but I've never touched it because I didn't need to. Whereas the other drum filter, this one, pretty much entirely looks brand new. Again, it's slight brownness just there where that one is, where the UV light isn't, but it's pretty clean all around. Now you could tell with this filter that the fry are giving it a bit of a hard time, which is why there's this brownness just here. The fry produce a lot of muck, which is giving that filter a hard time. And also on top of that, we've just seen another issue with these filters, is that UV light is still on. And I try my best not to look at it, or always wear some UV resistant glasses if I lift it, but then again I usually turn it off. I usually turn the UV light off before I open that, because it really can hurt your eyes. It's not good for you at all. Where I think the Oase drum filter can actually turn the UV light off. I think it has a little thing on it where you can put the UV light on, so it would turn the UV light off if you lift the lid up, which would be really handy. So what actually is the maintenance on this drum filter and the Oase drum filter? Well, the thing that they share in common is the spray bar. So let's have a look under here. Like that. If I put this lamp on. What I'm going to do first with this one, I have to turn that off so it's not going to start up and wet me through. So what you need to do really every now and then is, this one's been left for about a month now, and it just builds up a little bit of muck. It works its way out eventually, and it doesn't make any difference because this muck is in the waste section. But it's good practice to just hose it down and just wash it down the drain. It doesn't hurt anything to do that. And then you can wash it under here, and it sometimes builds a little bit up on the lip of this tray. Now with the Oase drum filter, this gap is really small, so you can't get into there. You've got to take these sections off, and you'll see them shortly. And you can get into it then, but it's just not quite as convenient. You can't just lift the lid and say, oh no, there's an orange stuck in there, which is quite a common thing. When the fish have had an orange, it'll get stuck just here, and they'll just be sat on this tray, and you just pick it out and take it out. With the Oase drum filter, you'd have to look, then find the drum, then find the orange stuck in it. So it's not quite as convenient. And obviously we've got this larger section here, which is your inlet section, and I put an air blower in it to keep it all mixed up. And I can do that in these ones. Can't really do that in the Oase drum filter because it's such a narrow section. You can hardly get your fingers in it like that. It's really tight. So that's a bit of a negative, and where I prefer these ones. But obviously, you know, that's very good. You've also got to clean these heads. So these heads are, I don't know if the camera can really see it, but these heads, there's a little spray nozzle in there like a pressure washer, and these just twist a quarter of a turn and come out. I don't want to do it on camera because if I drop it down there, I'll never get it back again. In fact, I did drop one down there once in the other drum filter, and I found it about a year later when I removed my bead filters. It got stuck in the pipes at pipework. So you don't want to drop anything underneath the drums. That's a good point, but that's the same with any drum. So you, every now and then, perhaps once a year, you're best just taking these off and just giving them a quick wire brush and just making sure that they're working properly, because they might block up, especially when they're pumping the water from the clean side of the drum. If they were using tap water, which is much cleaner, then you might get away with it, but I'm using the water from the pond to do this jet nozzle. So there we go, that's kind of the maintenance that you have to do. Not a lot, but you do have to do some. It's not just plug it in and forget it. You know, you have to have a look in here, make sure there's no stuck in. With that Oase drum filter, I actually pulled a frog out on it. So, you know, I had a look in, there was a frog in it, took him out. We weren't best pleased, but, you know, I moved him on to another pond out of the way, so we won't do that again. Now, one thing I don't like about these drums really is this. So this is the spray nozzle, and in the basement I've got a pump. We'll look at that in a bit. And the pump pumps up into this drum. I hate it being separate. It just means something you've got to plumb up, something I've got to wire up, something you've got to mess about with. The Oase drum's got it built in, but so has my other Profi drum. My other Profi drum has the K1 chamber on the side of it, and that was seen installing it when I did the 1,000-gallon tank for the smaller fish, and that has it built in, which is great. But these versions, the standalone drums, don't have it built in. They have a separate pump, which I'm not really bothered about. So yeah, the advantages and disadvantages kind of jump about from it one to one. You've got to figure out what you would prefer. And again, they're not very well insulated and stuff like that, so if you're leaving it outside, you might want to put it in a shed or insulate it, whatever. But I think they're both versions are pretty waterproof. These can be outside, this can be outside, but I feel like they really do want some sort of cover over them. It wouldn't hurt them to have a cover over them and keep them out of direct cold and frost and stuff like that. In fact, that's this one running right now. One of the reasons this drum is particularly quiet, you can only hear the pressure washer, is because the motor, the pump, is in the basement, so it's actually louder in the basement when it's running. So let's go and have a look in the basement quickly at that pump, and then we'll go to the Oase drum. So here we are in the basement. This is the booster pump for the main pond's drum filter. And as you can see, we've got the hard 1-inch line coming in, and then that little pipe going out and goes straight up to the drum filter. So that's all it is. It's a booster pump. I think they're about 3 bar rated, something like that. Just like any other booster pump. And then the other one is right here. Exactly the same pump for the other drum filter. But this one takes its water from the pump, so the water goes into the pump, but it tees just before that and goes into that pump as well. And that, you got to be careful with these because you don't want to run too much of this pipe, because this pipe expands very slightly when it's under pressure, and at the beginning of the cycle that takes all your pressure out of your pump and makes it not clean the pressure, makes it not have the pressure to clean the screen enough. At the start I used a 1-inch pipe to do this, and the 1-inch pipe just expanded like a big balloon and took all the pressure out of the pump, so it weren't actually cleaning the screen properly. But I found this was a good compromise between actually running a hard line like that and a really big 1-inch flexible tube. So let's go and have a look at that Oase drum filter now. So here we are with the Oase drum filter. Now, when I first heard about I was going to be installing this drum filter, I weren't really very interested. The drum filter just didn't impress me at all, really, from what I've seen on paper and what I've seen. So I've seen one running before and it didn't interest me, and I quite like my drums, so my always thought would be to stick with what I know, really. But I installed this drum filter on this pond, and I actually quite like it. Now, there are a few reasons. There are a few things I don't like, a few things I really like, and you've got to pick which drum filter is most suitable for your situation. Now, this drum filter is quite well controlled by this little control panel thing here. It nicely tells you temperature, and then what you do is you just hold that button there for a few seconds and it'll go into cleaning mode like so, and then obviously then the water runs into there. It doesn't use much water. I think it uses about, say, half a litre in one cleaning cycle, I should imagine. And so it's quite economical on water, but it's similar to my drum in that sort of respect. There's not much difference. So there we go. That's the cleaning cycle over. So let's have a look at the drum filter itself. So this lid is quite an heavy lid, and it only comes off one way. So I'm going to have to put the camera down a second. Pop that there. Now, you'll notice now that it's gone into an error. So it's just gone error, and the pond's 11 degrees, so that was saying error. And the drum won't run, which is a really nice feature. I really like that. My drum doesn't do that. If you take the lid off, it'll still run, and if you take the lid off, the UV light will still be on and stuff like that. Not very keen on that, but that's just how it is with my drum. It doesn't really matter to me. You just turn it off manually before you take the lid off. And how it knows the lid's being taken off is because of this magnet thing here. This is a magnetic switch just here. Now, this is a big drum filter, and this is a bigger one. But at first I weren't really keen on these sort of modular design of things, but they seem a nice mesh. They're a very fine mesh, and they're removable, which is a good idea. You cannot get in through here, whereas the Profi drum, you can get in through here and sort of clean it. You can get your arm in and wipe around the outlet chute. You can't with this one. You have to take these off and sort of mess about, but that's not a massive deal. As you can see, there's a bit of food and stuff floating just here. All drums get that. All drums get that, but this one seems to get it a little bit more than mine. I think it just wants cleaning. It'll eventually work its way around the system, and that's why I put an air stone in mine. But you can't really put an air stone in this one, I don't think, because there's just not enough room in this gap. But yeah, so it's a pretty compact unit. It's all sort of crammed into here. You've got your motor and everything crammed into it. Your water pump's down there, so there's no messing about with that. With my Profi drum. You have to, the pump is separate on some of the version, the pump is built in on some others, so you might end up having to plumb the high pressure pump up, you might not, and I'll show that on my drum filters, but it's quite a nice drum. My favourite thing about this drum filter, my absolute favourite thing about it, is this little control unit here, surprisingly enough. The plugs on it are idiot proof. You know, you can't go wrong, you just plug it in. The only thing you've got to do is put a 13 amp socket on the end of its cable and you're good to go. Or, you know, wire it directly in. Either way it'll work perfectly. But these, so I don't even know what these are, so I don't know what the difference is between each one of these cables. One of them will be the pump motor, one of them will be the drum motor, one of them will be all the sensors, but I don't know which ones they are because you just don't need to know. You just plug in, you can't go wrong. It's quite easy to do, whereas the Profi drum's not. You have to sort of know how to wire it up. It can be a bit complicated, and the different versions are different. So what else we got? These K1 chambers, or Helix chambers as always called it, really nice chambers. I'm not right keen on how they fit together with these 6-inch rubber boot things here. They're okay. They're a good tight seal, they're just hard to work with, I find. And then on the outlet, because this one has got twin Helix chambers rather than what you would normally have is your Helix chamber and then a pump chamber. I've stuck with a 6-inch outlet, so I've had to go 6-inch and then 6-inch to 4-inch and then 4-inch to 1.5 inch, and then this one even goes 1.5 to 1 inch because that's a water fountain pump, and that one goes to 2-inch because that's the main pond pump. But it just seemed a bit of a pain having a 6-inch and then 4-inch and then 2-inch, I don't know. So I wasn't really keen on that, but it's, you know, okay. The Profi drum versions of this, it's all one sort of modular massive unit, so the advantage of this is it's quite manoeuvrable. These are fiberglass, so these containers are made of fiberglass, and they are not light, they're quite heavy, they're very dense fiberglass. Even the lids weigh quite a bit. They're very well made tanks. This drum filter on its own is a good 2-man lift. It's quite a heavy thing, and so are these even when they're empty and no Helix in them or anything like that. They're quite a heavy thing, but you can do it. You can easily manoeuvre them about. They were easy to get through that door and straight in here. Whereas the Profi drum version, just being all one unit, all one massive unit, it'd have been quite an ordeal getting it in here. It might not even go through that door. So that's the advantage of this version. It's modular and you can manage it to where you need it to get. So in that respect I preferred it, but I just feel like there's got to be a better way to do that. I don't know, it just doesn't seem... It just doesn't seem something I pretty much appreciate. But the drum filter, I can't complain about it really. This drum filter is definitely made for somebody that just wants to put a drum filter on the pond and forget about it. Only thing I did is obviously we've put this on and got the water level right in the pond. You've got your minimum maximum here, so you can see it's alright there, and I got the right water level. I got it to the right level it required. But after that, all I've done is plug it all together and just set it going. I have no setting up of probes. I have moved this probe up because it weren't detecting that the water level were going down, which isn't anything that affects the drum filter. What that is this is how it tells if your pump is on or not. So if this is up, your pump isn't running basically. But that's what that is. So it's quite a plug in and forget about drum, whereas mine isn't so much. So I've tried to cover mostly disadvantages of the drum filters and each different one in this video. I hope you understand that actually a drum filter is the best mechanical filter that you could ever want for your pond. There really isn't anything that I'm aware of any better, especially with just for mechanical purposes. So I hope you enjoyed this video. thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, then please put them below, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible, and I shall see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.